Jesus, what a friend for sinners, Jesus, lover of my soul.
Welcome to the Unknown Bible, the broadcast ministry of Bible Believers Baptist Church in Corpus Christi, Texas. Join us now for today's Bible study with our pastor, Bevans Welder.
We are going to study Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. At least the first part of it. Paul said, "Be ye angry and sin not." He goes on to say in the verse, "Let not the sun go down upon your wrath." Be ye angry and sin not. You know, I have often thought, how is it possible to be angry and not sin? I mean, I believe that every time I've ever been angry, I have sinned in some capacity. When you fail to rule your spirit, you're going to do or you're going to say something wrong. That's just the way it is with anger. Yet in thinking about this verse, recently it dawned on me that there are some very specific ways in which we can sin when we're angry. And I believe that Paul had these ways or these sins in mind when he wrote Ephesians 4:26. So if we can see some of the ways in which we can sin when we're angry, I believe that will help us to be aware of these sins so we don't commit them when we are angry. I mean, Paul didn't say it's a sin to be angry. He said, "Be ye angry and sin not." I have to stress, for those of us who have had a short fuse in our lives, we must rule our own spirit. If we don't, and we fly off the handle at every small thing, there's sin in that kind of anger. But Paul's not talking about that. Paul is saying there are times when it is appropriate to be angry, but it is also appropriate at those times not to sin. And so he warns us, be ye angry and sin not. So let's look at some ways that we can sin when we're angry. And then when we see what those are and we're aware of them, we'll say, okay, next time I'm angry, I'll be sure not to do that. Now, we won't be talking about some of the most obvious. We're going to talk about some that may be less obvious. All right, here's first. You sin, when you're angry, you sin by holding on to your anger. Again, look in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26, Paul said, "Be ye angry and sin not." And goes on to say, "Let not the sun go down upon your wrath." Don't let the sun go down upon your wrath. All right then. You sin when you don't deal swiftly with your anger to bring it under control. Paul said, in so many words, you should be over your anger by sundown. Sundown, you see, on the Jewish calendar is the beginning of a new day. On our Gentile calendar, our new day begins at midnight. But on the Jewish calendar, the new day begins at sundown. That's the end of the day in which you are and the beginning then of the new day. So Paul said, you need to deal with your anger today. Don't carry your anger over to another day. Deal with it now. And man, I'll tell you what, being in the ministry and having the opportunity to talk with people for really now decades. Some people have hung on to things about which they are angry for years, and some even for decades. You say, how do you know that? You can tell. Because when they get upset, they dredge up these things of the past like they happen today. I can remember in several instances visiting with people who have gotten angry And they're recalling things that happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And the anger associated with their recollection is as if the thing that they are upset about happened a minute ago or 5 minutes ago or this morning. It's amazing. I'm thinking to myself, how could you hang on to that much anger? Well, I know how they could. They become bitter. In other words, when you find yourself angry and something of the past comes to the forefront, let's say you're having an argument with a spouse or a close associate, and something they did 5 or 10 years ago comes ready at hand in the argument. You know what your problem is? You're bitter. You're bitter. You have hung on to your anger. You have carried this thing over, and by holding on to your anger, you have sinned. So if you want to fulfill what Paul said here, be ye angry and sin not. If you don't want to sin when you're angry, then don't hold on to your anger. You have to let everything go that you deal with that's associated with something about which you're angry. You got to let the thing go today, in the day in which it happens. Don't hold on to your anger. If you do, you've sinned. Some people go to bed at night with a spouse, for instance, and they turn their back to their spouse or whatever because I'm mad at you, and they'll hold on to that for 2 or 3 days and pout. You got a problem. You say, what's the problem? Sin. He said, be ye angry and sin not, and let not the sun go down upon your wrath. And you sin when you hold on to your anger, so don't do that. You see, I told you these aren't necessarily the most obvious, but I'll tell you what, they are the most troublesome. And that is certainly what we just discussed is very troublesome. Holding on to your anger past sundown is problematic. It's a sin when you're dealing with anger. All right. Paul said, be ye angry and sin not. So here's another way that people can sin when they get angry. You sin by distorting the truth. You sin by distorting the truth. You see, when you're angry, you sin by becoming irrational. I mean, we all understand that anger is an emotion. Emotions are irrational. They don't have to make sense. You're just mad. And so out comes all this stuff from your mouth. And your mind is reeling, and it's trying to deal with the facts, and because you're mad, you can't see the truth clearly. It's distorted. For example, in a conversation, when you get mad, you may hear a person with whom you're talking say something that he didn't say or that she didn't say. But because you're angry, you accuse him or you accuse her of saying it because that's the way you heard it. And you react to it as if that's the way he said it or that's the way she said it. Now, that's not what they said at all. That's not what they meant to say, but that's how you heard it. And when you heard it that way, because your anger is there, you have distorted the truth, and you are now reacting to the distortion. And so by distorting the truth, you have sinned. That's right. By distorting the truth, you have sinned. It's not their fault that they said what they said. It's your fault for taking what they said and distorting it in your anger to fuel your anger. That's the sin. And if you don't want to sin when you're angry, then don't distort the truth. You say, well, how in the world am I going to do that? By asking questions, by staying calm, by ruling your spirit. Let's say something is getting under your skin in the course of a conversation. And so you say to your spouse, as an example, because this is where it often takes place, you say, I'm beginning to this is getting under my skin. All right, you've already admitted that now there's an anger building. All right, that's good because the person you're talking to is now alerted that we're in a conversation where something I say may be distorted. So you say, this is going to get under my skin. And then your spouse says something and that really triggers it. So you know what you do? Right then, you stop and you have a couple of options. One, you could say, we need to continue this conversation later. And you don't sin, you stop. My grandfather told my dad and his brothers, when you have a conversation that's going to get heated, have it by the swimming pool, and when it gets hot, jump in and cool off. Well, that's really good. That's really, really good. All right, or the second option, or there may be many, but a second obvious option is you could say, now wait a minute, I heard you say this, whatever it was. Is that what you said? Is that what you meant to say? Or did I hear it wrong? Now, if you want to fight, you won't ask that question because you're angry and you want to fight. There is the sin. But if you don't want to fight, if you don't want the anger to take you into a place where you have sinned, you stop and you say, wait, would you clarify what I just heard you say? I want to make sure I understood you correctly. And 9 times out of 10, your spouse, your close associate, whatever, will say, no, I didn't mean to say that at all. What I said was this, and this is what I meant to convey or say when I use those words. You're like, oh, okay, well, I understand. Well, I'm not mad about that. See, you haven't distorted the truth. So if you don't want to sin when you're angry, don't distort the truth. Clarify it. Clarify it. All right. The Jews, let's just use them for an example. The Jews, when they were in the wilderness, distorted the truth. See, when they were in the wilderness, they got mad at Moses for taking them out of Egypt. They were angry, and they complained that the land where they were was not a land of milk and honey. They complained that Egypt was better than the wilderness. And the truth is that Egypt was much worse than the wilderness, but they distorted that truth. They distorted it because they were mad. I mean, they had completely forgotten in Egypt, while they were eating garlic and leeks and onions, that they were also in hard bondage and that their children, their male children, were being drowned in the river. Yeah, they forgot all about that. See, they distorted that truth. The truth is also that the land where they were was not a land of milk and honey because they were not in the promised land. You see, in other words, they were saying, wait, you haven't brought us to the land of milk and honey. That's right. We're not there yet. The truth is that the wilderness with God was far better than Egypt, and the truth was that the Jews were not getting out of the wilderness until they completed 40 years of wandering, and the last of the generation who refused to believe God died out for their unbelief and for their rebellion against God. That's the truth. You see, but by distorting the truth, they sinned. That's the way it is in anger. So don't distort the truth. Be honest. You say, well, I don't want to be honest. If I'm honest, I can't get mad. You see, Paul was right. Be ye angry and sin not. I want to fight. So I'm going to distort the truth so I can fight. There you go. There's your sin. Paul said, be ye angry and sin not. And if you don't want to sin when there's anger building, you have to be honest. You cannot distort the truth. That's the sin. All right, there's another way. There's another way that you distort that you sin. There's another way that you sin when you're angry. Paul said, be ye angry and sin not. All right, well, here's a way you sin. You sin by twisting the facts. Now, this may sound very similar to the other point by distorting the truth, but when you distort the truth, you don't know what the truth is. By twisting the facts, you know what the facts are, but you twist them to build your case. And there's the difference. See, when you get mad and you're looking for a fight, you twist the facts. You add some things to the facts to beef up your justification for being mad. That's what you're doing. I mean, what you add may be true. Yeah, it's not distorted. It just has nothing to do with the thing that you're saying that you're mad about. But you thought, well, what I'm mad about right now, I don't have enough facts, so I got to add some here. And that way I can be justified in my anger. And that's all you're trying to do. You're just trying to get more fuel on the fire so that you can rage against the person you're mad at. And when you add to the facts, listen, you are sinning. You say, yeah, but they're facts. Yes, but they have nothing to do with the case. They have nothing to do with the pertinent problem at hand. You're just mad and you want to rage, and so you take the fact of whatever it is that disturbed you and add about 3 more, and now, see, I'm justified in being mad. That's not justification, that's sin. That's right. Don't add to the facts. The facts are what the facts are. Don't add to them. Don't multiply the problem just so you can be mad. Here's another way to twist the facts. We're talking about what Paul said in Ephesians 4:26. He said, "Be ye angry and sin not." And so what we're doing is we're looking at ways you can sin when you get angry. That way, if you know some common ways that people sin when they get angry, you'll know what not to do, see, when that opportunity comes. And one of the things that people do when they get angry and causes them to sin is they twist the facts. They twist the facts. They take them and they use them in a way that is not the way things really happened. All right? And so one way to twist the facts is to leave out some facts. Leave out some things that are pertinent. I mean, often there are pertinent facts that fully explain why a thing happened the way that it did, let's say between you and another person. In other words, if all the facts were on the table and rational, non-attached, unemotionally involved people were to look at all the facts, they could say, yeah, we see exactly what happened, so what are you mad about? But you don't want them to look at you and say, so what are you mad about? You want them to say, man, I understand why you're mad. I'd be mad too if that happened to me. And so what you do is you just leave out some important facts that fully explain why the thing happened the way that it did. Because you know that if you tell the whole story, people will understand why it happened the way that it did. And you don't want them to understand that. You want them to say, poor baby, you have every right in the world to be angry. And you don't. So when you're angry, and you leave out these pertinent facts so that you can build your case, you have sinned. That's right. And if you don't want to sin, Paul said, be angry and sin not, then you have to put all the facts out on the table. Not more than what happened, but all that happened. Put all the facts on the table. You say, well, I don't want to do that. I know you don't want to do that. Because if you put all the facts on the table, then you'll realize I really don't have justification for being as mad as I am. There you go. You see, this is fun, isn't it? I mean, I'll tell you, you get right down to the core problem with some of these things. And you go, Brother Welder, I don't think I'm enjoying this message today. Maybe there's something on another radio broadcast. You're trying to get some help, aren't you? You've often read Ephesians 4:26 like I have, and you're wondering, I wonder what Paul meant by that. Well, now you're learning. You say, well, I don't like what I'm learning. Yeah, but it'll do you some good, so stay with it, all right? Be ye angry and sin not. You sin when you hold on to your anger. You sin when you distort the truth. You sin when you twist the facts. Another way to twist the facts is you lie about some things. You say, well, I wouldn't be doing that. Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would. When people get mad, they'll definitely lie about some things. Because you know what the facts are. But you lie about them so that you can be justified in your anger, because you know that if you really told all the truth, people would look at you and go, why are you mad? The other person ought to be mad. I mean, in a fight, for instance, you might say, he started it, when the fact is, you started it. But you know if they knew you started it, they'd be looking at you like, well, so what are you mad about? See, when you lie about the facts when you're angry, you have sinned. And if you don't want to sin when you're angry, be truthful and be honest. Be ye angry and sin not. Paul said in Ephesians 4:25, wherefore putting away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. Oh my. It gets tougher, doesn't it? You see, the problem is most of the time when you get mad, you want to be mad. That's the problem. And so in order to justify it, you got to make your case look good, and often in order to do that, you have to twist the facts. And one of the ways you do that is to lie about them. And that's not good. That's a sin. Be ye angry and sin not, Paul said. All right, how's another way that you can be angry and sin? I'll tell you how. You sin by blaming the wrong person. By blaming the wrong person. Listen, when you're angry, it is very common to shift the blame to another person. The person may not be innocent, but the person is not the right person to blame. You're blaming the wrong person. Ahab, for instance, said to Elijah in 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 20, Ahab had been looking for Elijah because things in the country had gone south bad. And he wanted to get Elijah. And Ahab, when they met, Ahab said to Elijah, hast thou found me, O mine enemy? In other words, he was blaming Elijah for the trouble and the terrible condition in Israel. In fact, Ahab was the cause of all the trouble that they endured. So Elijah said, when Ahab asked him the question, hast thou found me, O mine enemy? Elijah said, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord. Ahab was the one to blame. Ahab then blamed the wrong person. He was the one to blame. But you see, when you're mad, you shift the blame. You may shift it away from yourself to somebody else that is proximate to the problem, but in no way related to the cause of it. Listen, when you get mad, for instance, at God, see, God's proximate, but he's not the cause. So when you get mad at God, for instance, you'll accuse him of wrongdoing. Sometimes there's the death of a loved one, and the grieving survivor is mad at God because the survivor thinks God could have intervened and stopped this, or God could have intervened and healed this person, or God could have intervened and saved this person. And God didn't do that, so I'm mad at God. God's not to blame. You sin when you blame God. When you get mad, for instance, because your child has been disciplined for doing something wrong, you might be inclined to blame the disciplinarian. The disciplinarian is proximate, but the disciplinarian is not the cause. You say, what is proximate? Near, associated with the problem, but not the cause of the problem. You see, it's very common when children are disciplined for doing something wrong, it's very common for the parent to blame the disciplinarian. And when you do that, you have sinned. You have blamed the wrong person. See, when you are angry and you blame the wrong person, you are the sinner. So when Paul said in Ephesians 4:26, be ye angry and sin not, don't blame the wrong person. You say, but I don't want to take the blame. I don't want my friend to take the blame. I don't want my child to take the blame. Well, the blame goes where the blame belongs. You don't shift it. And when you do, you've sinned. That way you can be angry, see, at somebody else instead of the culprit. All right, let's look at one more. Paul said, be ye angry and sin not, and we're finding ways that you can sin when you're angry. That way, when these come up, you won't do it if you don't want to sin. You sin when you're angry by defending the wrong person. You can sin by blaming the wrong person. You can sin by defending the wrong person. Again, speaking of children, since this is such a common scenario, you sin when you get mad and defend them instead of the authority who justly accuse them. I mean, I tell you, you can't even imagine. This is such a problem in law enforcement. This is such a problem in schools. This is such a problem even in churches. It is so common for people to defend the guilty party when they get angry. I mean, we've seen so many instances of this publicly and privately. Undoubtedly, you personally are aware of numerous of these occasions. And you know what God said? In Proverbs chapter 17, verse 15, God said, "He that justifieth the wicked, and he that condemneth the just, even they both are abomination to the Lord." You know what that is? That's blaming the wrong person, and that's defending the wrong person. And God said they're both abomination to the Lord. When you're angry and you defend the wrong person, you have sinned. You say, well, I don't want to sin when I get angry. Then don't defend the wrong person. Now, what we've looked at in this broadcast on Ephesians 4:26, be ye angry and sin not, is that you sin when you hold on to your anger. When you sin when you distort the truth. You sin when you twist the facts. You sin when you blame the wrong person. You sin when you defend the wrong person. And these are just a few specific examples of how you can be angry and sin. Now, the Bible tells us to be angry, but it also says, and sin not. So the next time you're angry, be very careful. You cannot fail to rule your spirit. Be very careful to deal with your anger and quickly put it away. Ephesians 4:31 says, let all anger be put away from you. Be very careful to not distort the truth, to not twist the facts. You must be very, very honest with yourself and with others when you're angry. Be very careful to not blame the wrong person or defend the wrong person. The facts will tell you who's really to blame. Perhaps what you have to do is calm all the way down before you can see who this really is. Therefore, be ye angry and sin not. Amen.
You have been listening to The Unknown Bible, the radio ministry of Bible Believers Baptist Church in Corpus Christi, Texas. For information about our church, go to our church website at www.my3bc.com. That's my3bc.com. If you would like to contact us by telephone, our number is 361-241-6100. Bible Believers Baptist Church is a Bible-believing church located at 1701 Rand Morgan Road. If you are not currently a member of a Bible-believing church and you are looking for a church with an uncompromising stand on the words of God, come visit with us this Sunday or Wednesday. We would love to see you.
Hallelujah.